Life is about firsts. First steps, first job, first home. In my life, I have happened to achieve many firsts. Unfortunately, as a woman, many of those firsts required fighting stereotypes and also a lot of hard work. But the sure thing is that they all came with valuable realizations. And that's what I'm here to share with you. Because one of my most valued firsts is the fact that I was the first woman to become a YPO from Mexico to Panama, the first woman to come so close to an exclusive men's club. Let me tell you a story. Imagine a girl graduating from high school, always a good student. She was certain she would be the first one in her class. But when the valedictorian was announced, it was not her. So she ran to the counselor and complained. But he just looked at her and replied, "You're correct, but you're a girl. You won't need it, so we gave it to the runner-up." She cried on her way home. She wanted her dad to demand justice, but instead, he alleged, "He's right. You're a girl. You don't need it. You're going to Europe to prepare for marriage." Undefeated, she negotiated on her own with the counselor and ended graduating in a tied first place. The girl was born in the midst of a Latin American family within a deep macho culture. But she had made a valuable realization. You have to fight in order to claim what is rightfully yours. Upon her father's insistence, she ended up in Europe, in Paris, studying French literature at the Sorbonne, art at the Louvre, refining her lady skills. Unhappy, she realized that was not the life she wanted. So, she packed her things and came back to El Salvador, where she studied law, paid for her studies, in the midst of a civil war. So she had to walk beside dead bodies to reach her classrooms. Yes, you guessed right. It is my life story. Finding a meaning to my life gave me so much potential. It has allowed me to achieve happiness by doing what's inspirational and meaningful. Since those very early days, I was called upon to balance my life, my studies, my work. At those times, I could count the women studying law with one hand, and it was a turning point in which my education and luck made me become the first woman president of a bank in El Salvador. And nowhere better did I need to administer my energy the best possible way, as I had to lead 2 mergers in 4 months. Realizing where your energy comes from, how to administer, how do you gain or lose it, is important to every leader. And that is why it was so important to administer it. Becoming the first woman foreign minister in my country was also a first, ready to address the most important foreign policy issues, one of them being the lack of demarcation with our borders with Honduras. So, I talked to the experts, and they all said, it can't be done. But I felt the suffering of the people who lived in that no man's land. Looking at the problem with optimism allowed me to sketch a plan that took us from negotiations through the Organization of American States to the Supreme Court in The Hague. The result was the demarcation of all of our territorial boundaries. Encouraged and wanting to advance solutions to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I went to Gaza, accompanied by a Salvadoran ex-guerrilla fighter, to share with them the peace accord that we ourselves had reached. Through those challenges, I was able then to see that with optimism, you can definitely forge solutions to embellish and face difficulties with more optimism. And that applies even so more to women, whom, according to Luan Brizendine in her book, The Female Brain, fall into these types of depressions twice more likely than men. So for a woman in a world led by men, let me share that sometimes I did have to fight prejudice and stereotypes. In my first trip to the United Nations, we were only 9 women ministers of foreign affairs. So there I am, in a room full of men, waiting impatiently for the meeting to start. When I helped the last one arrive and find a chair, he looks at me and he says, "Coffee with milk." What else could a girl be doing there in that room but to serve him coffee? So I did, and watched him dive under the table as he realized that I was his peer. You can imagine. Which brings me to connections. Some men have wider networks. Some women have shorter networks, but deeper. In my positions, I have been forced then to reach out. Wanting to initiate diplomatic relations with Qatar, I sought help from a YPOer in that country. And the result was a newspaper cover with me as the first woman to enter the Emir's office in an official capacity. Finally, the best bet to overcome all hurdles is to get involved. After building your networks, being involved means that you have to find your own voice and participate. Starting corporate sustainability as a new function with HSBC in Latin America back in 2007 was an opportunity I couldn't miss, and which I enjoyed for the last 9 years. So, my dear YPOs, let's follow what our heart sings. Let's be inspired and bring meaning to our lives. Let's connect better with others. Be optimistic. Prioritize those things that energize you. And never look at people with prejudice. We're all human. Gender does differentiate, but in a way that it complements our natural differences for the better. Thank you.
My kiss.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing, especially all the first. So we have a couple questions from the audience. Mayu, could you please tell us more about corporate sustainability and what it means to you?
Thanks so very much. I believe that business goals are completely linked to the societies and the communities in which they operate. So if we don't capture the impacts that we're having from the social and environmental point of view, those business practices could become unsustainable. So I believe that as YPOers, we do have an opportunity now with the Sustainability Development Goals to be able to link our companies to helping achieve them so that then we can contribute to the betterment of the world.
Thank you. Next question. How is YPO supportive of the leadership message you've just shared with us?
Well, if you look and understand, YPO is so close to all of the valuable firsts that I have shared with you, especially in regards to following your heart. We get a forum that can support us to do that. We are broadening our connections, going beyond borders, as the lab is called. And thus, we find champions like yourselves, with whom we find that there is hope to move on. And finally, with lifelong learning, YPO prepares us so that we can and must persevere.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.